What is the silliest reason you've seen someone get offended? When I worked at Walt Disney World, we had buttons that we would give out to guests who were celebrating a special day or event in the parks, things like first visits, anniversaries, birthdays, honeymoons, and so on. The purpose of the buttons was to give the employees' cast members in Disney speak an opening to engage the guests. If you saw a couple with anniversary buttons, for example, you could wish them a happy anniversary. Well, one of our greeters saw a little boy and his father walking towards an attraction, and noticed the boy was wearing a button that said happy birthday, and had his name written underneath it. So she smiled, and said, "Happy birthday, Bobby." The father proceeded to get up in her face, screaming, "How dare you talk to my child? You have no reason to talk to him. If you have anything to say to him, you go through me." Reduced her to tears. I really felt sorry for that kid. Undefined. I used to work in an Outback Steakhouse in suburb of Atlanta. A couple came in and was seated in a booth. Before their server could even take their drink order, I noticed them angrily walking to the door. I asked if something was wrong and they replied, "We refuse to eat in a restaurant with a rebel flag on the wall." It was an Australian flag. Undefined. One time someone got offended when I put on my seat belt. Thought I was commenting on her ability to drive. My downhill neighbors took down the fence separating our yards because they said our yard was so beautiful. Then they complained that we were spying on them from our deck. Then we built a fence separating the yards again so we both had our privacy. Then they built a raised deck to see over the fence to our yard and complained again that we were spying on them. Great plan to get you to pay for a new fence. Now they want it higher. Masterminds. Undefined. I saw a girl go on a Facebook rant one time condemning a cookie delivery company because they gave her an extra cookie and wrote a note saying figured you would appreciate an extra cookie. She went on talking about how she had body issues and this guy/company should send her a written apology because of how they were calling her fat or something. The best part is the company responded and offered her a free box of 6 of her favorite cookies. She accepted. I worked in a store that sells miniature historical figures. Our window display was a large recreation of the Battle of Waterloo. Maybe 6 feet by 3. We had a woman come in one day and scream at the top of her lungs because one of the figures was holding a tiny Union Jack. So in short, a woman was offended by our tiny historically accurate flag of the United Kingdom. Undefined. Friends with an allergy mom on Facebook. She takes it as a personal insult if you mention liking or consuming peanut products. I live across the country from her, but my peanut butter and jelly sandwich could kill her son. So I shouldn't eat it? I bought the Reese's candy variety pack to hand out on Halloween. It's worth noting that I also had non-food items and was participating in the Teal Pumpkin Project. But the fact that I was handing out candy with peanut butter in it was an attack on her and her child. I work as customer service in a retail store. We had a single long line on the right side of the desk has 3 registers in it for returns. A woman who just came in went to the left side and straight to one of the registers. When told that she needs to get into line, she becomes furious and started screaming, asking why she has to fall in line. Yes, I am one of those people. She shouted when she saw a coworker roll her eyes. It was causing a scene, so a manager took over and we all looked apologetically at the other people in line. Undefined. I could fill this whole thread with my mother. but here are two examples from recent memory. She cooks potatoes for dinner. I put salt on them. She screams for 2 hours about how rude I am to insinuate her cooking isn't good enough. I'm using the single cup coffee maker at my cousin's house. My cousin makes an offhand remark about how she needs to replace the filter, because it's overdue. I laugh and say that we have to do the same. And we forget about the filter often. Cue mother screaming about how I embarrassed her in front of her family. I was in line at a donut shop where the woman ahead of me got sorely offended with the guy in front of her because he took the last cinnamon donut in the display case, the very one she had her eyes fixed on for breakfast. She actually asked if he'd let her have it in exchange for 2 others she would buy of a different variety. When he said no, she just stormed out of the shop, glaring at him. Once when I was working as a barista, this older guy got really upset that I was wearing a ring on my left ring finger cause I wasn't married. I looked at him ranting at me and said, well, I am married so. A few of us were having a friendly chat with a neighbor. The topic of Tom Brady and Giselle came up and the neighbor says she's only with him for his money. We point out that she makes considerably more than he does. The neighbor flips out and says we are all ganging up on her and storms off. I work at a casino and a woman came up to the security guest yelling about how she was being discriminated against for having pink hair. It's a Hard Rock casino. We don't care about your hair, because people kept stopping her asking to see her ID. And she had to be escorted out every time because she doesn't have any of the 5 valid forms that we take. It's the law to have your ID on you when you enter the casino. There's a sign at every entrance and exit. Stop being stupid. Told her that her kids would be seated at the kids' table. And she freaked out that they were family members of the groom and shouldn't be shunned. So we immediately said we'd change the seating plan so they could sit with her. To which she got even more offended because she didn't want to spend the reception with a bunch of children and demanded she be with adults only. I worked with a guy that got offended I parked in a handicap spot that I was legally allowed to use. I spend most of my time in a wheelchair. Though a few years ago, even when I first started needing my chair, I was able to walk short distances fine. But anything that was beyond a certain point I was in danger of falling because I couldn't support myself that long. So I could drive to work okay. I could get out of my car and pull out my chair and get in. I could even leave my chair in my office to go to the bathroom about 10 feet away. So this guy started working for the same company and things are going fine. I don't know if he didn't notice me in my wheelchair at my desk instead of a normal office chair, or if he just hadn't seen me make one of my many trips down the hall to my boss in my chair, or what. He didn't work in my department, so I didn't really pay much attention. He was leaving one day at the same time I was and saw me stand out of my chair to put it in my car. He started screaming at me about how I was taking advantage of both the company, the parking space, and everyone who is really disabled. I mean, 5 minutes of a tirade while I am holding on to my car for dear life because he is preventing me from putting my folded chair into my trunk. I got a whole spiel about how his mom can't walk and every time she goes to park in a handicap spot some asshole like me is parked there, and how dare I take away parking spots from people who really can't get around. A co-worker came out, heard the yelling and called for security. Needless to say, after a 10-minute meeting with my boss, his boss, their boss and HR, he was fired. Seriously, the guy got angry and offended because my disability seemed fake to him because I could stand up for moments at a time. Every now and then I think I should have sent him my medical bills to prove how real my condition is, but I was shocked silent at the time and trying not to fall. My girlfriend's mom gets offended if you try to disagree with her in front of other people. She will pull you aside later and try to get you to apologize for embarrassing her so badly. My sister was freaking out about Ebola. I told her that the CDC is packed with highly trained people who have determined we don't have to worry. She said she'd read some articles online and that they were wrong. I told her it took more than reading a few articles to become an epidemiologist. She flipped the beep out and told me my opinion didn't count because I haven't graduated college yet.